The time is 4 p.m. It is Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. We'll begin the meeting at 4 p.m. We'll start with A1, discuss regular agenda items. Councilmember Ratana.
Yes, so I don't have a question per se, but on I-4, I just wanted to see if Sherelle, you can just kind of for the record, just come up and talk a little bit about what that will do, what that will entail, as I know some folks on our west side would be interested, just so I can point to that. Please.
Not a problem at all. Thank you for the question. So I-4 is an item that includes the service and assessment plan for the Mercer Crossing PID. Each year, a service plan has to be approved, and it basically outlines what fees the PID will pay, and that those fees do include the payment of the underlying debt. Each time that service and assessment plan is adopted, our third-party advisors who work with a lot of PIDs across the state, they go through and they evaluate the parcels and their valuation in terms of carving up according to the original service and assessment plan and what changes have happened within the landscape since that service and assessment plan was adopted. So basically, this plan outlines the method. You'll see like toward the back end of that, there's a number of pages that outline down to like the parcel numbers. And all of those parcels are allocated their portion of PID expenses according to their size and proportion as originally agreed to when the PID was set up. Is that what you were
Yes,
asking
just a
about?
general overview, yeah,
Okay.
and I saw the different assessments and whatnot, and do you foresee, I know that they've changed since, it's changed every year because of, what's been going on, and so do you foresee that continuing to go up dramatically? Because I see the changes are somewhat small.
The PID assessment generally doesn't vary widely once everything is locked in place. And right now I say once everything is locked in place because we continue to have parcels that are being built, et cetera. And to the extent that something was originally planned 5 years ago when the PID was created and something is different, that may change a certain footprint. But, so that may cause some slight variations from for one parcel from year to year, but we don't anticipate those changes to be material to any individual. And by law, whatever a parcel was set up to have as an assessment, we can never go beyond what that original amount was.
Got it, perfect, thank you so
Okay.
much.
So I have a question, sort of a follow-up to that, please. The $1.173 million variance that was on table 11A, or 2A, I guess, page 4.
Thank you.
I didn't understand what comprised. It said that it represents an increase from the initial total estimated cost, but what would have changed to cause that to go up?
The developer contributed, that $1 million is the developer contributing more money than was originally
Okay.
planned.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that like the park money or just other stuff?
It would have been putting more money into infrastructure, roads, et cetera, within that area.
That's all I have.
Councilmember Ratana, you have anything else?
No, sir, that's it.
Councilmember Williams.
I'm good.
Councilmember Lynn.
Mayor, I'd like to request that item K1 be tabled from tonight's session, only for the fact that we have proposed fees here for a whole number of things, and to me, it'd be a lot easier to see a side-by-side comparison of where we are versus what's being requested. And so I'm
Can I
Okay.
speak to that? Included in So K1 is the adoption of Appendix A, which is effectively like our price list. Appendix A and the revenue that's generated related to these fees is factored into the budget. So that's one point to be aware of. The second point is related to K1, there would have been a staff report, and K1 includes basically like a marked up version, so you can see the item, whatever that item is, and you can see places where it's deleting a fee or basically adding in a section of fee to maybe stratify for veterans or for over 65 or whatever the case may be. You can see the markups on the item that was submitted, just beyond the staff report. That item does show the markups.
Okay, well, there were a lot of items that were on here that I don't know whether they were changed or increased from a previous fee schedule or not.
I think it's
I
on
did
your
see-
appendix A, because it's highlighted where they made the changes. But it's on your appendix A, it's not part of that big one that has everything listed out.
Well, I saw where fees, some were deleted, some were crossed out and increased. So am I to assume that everything else is staying the same?
Everything else is staying the same.
Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure. All right, thank you. That answered that.
You still want this tabled, or are you good?
No, no.
No, you don't want it tabled? Like, we're good to go forward with it tonight?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other items? Councilmember Lynn?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt?
Thank you, Mayor. Question will stay, if we may, on the fee schedule.
Okay.
The addition of the exemption for disabled vets, I think it's very good. I want to make sure that's clear. However, I think in the second reference, it's under a different section. It's under the Parks and Rec, and it still says
Okay.
Senior Center.
The page.
What page are you referencing?
Let's see.
I think it's 6, on page 6 of 12,
Actually,
on your
I did
appendix
a
A.
compare. I did a compare. I actually printed from the Muni code, the actual appendix
Oh,
A.
okay.
Let me get to that.
Ooh, and while you're doing that, let me get to some glasses.
No harm, no foul.
Right, let me get to some glasses. I ran up here too quickly.
It's just, I think it's more of a reference issue. And then I want to talk about how we present this in the Muni code as well, because I think there's an opportunity for improvement there. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get that schedule. There it is. It's the second reference to the disabled vet. On page 6, it talks of the senior center, which is now, should be changed to obviously the branch connection. And then again, we reference that on page 9. And I believe we are under the recreation center, and the reference talks about exemption from payment from the senior center. It doesn't say the rec center. Sorry, I make sure.
Okay. You're referencing
Page
disabled vets that falls under the category,
I believe it is
so many categories above it.
recreation center memberships,
Yes,
residents, disabled veterans. Again, I'm all for this. I just
I
want to
see.
make sure
I see
that
what
we
you're saying. You're
clarify.
changing, tweaking the language to make sure that it doesn't reference the senior center if we're talking about the rec center. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Which exacerbates the need to perhaps see what can we do about updating the presentation of this type of information in the Muni code tool or the app. And I'm not sure how we can create better separations or better highlighting, or I'm not sure how this information tabular gets into the code tool.
The Muni Code Corporation takes the ordinance and they codify it, so they send out a supplement that we adopt, it posts the changes in there. So we'll make sure that they get that right.
Yeah. It's very difficult to read, and I think if we're going to go through and make sure that we've updated this, that we actually address that.
It's pretty tricky to put together and gather all the changes
Well,
for us.
I understand. I'm not suggesting that it wasn't difficult.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
So,
Like, it's a tricky document.
Quickly look through that. Sorry, Mayor.
You're good.
And I think in some cases where we're adding new, it'll be interesting to see how it's presented.
How it
in the
all gets
meeting code.
codified, yes.
Right, and how it's going to be presented. So I'd be very interested in the result of that perspective. And I appreciate the updates in the area of the historical part. I think that's a really good idea. I don't know if anyone's paid attention to those changes, raising those fees. And then when we get into the property maintenance code under chapter 56, we're making a bunch of additions here. This is on page 10
and 11. Yeah.
The current muni code extract does not have those current numbering schema in there, so it was a little difficult to follow. So I want to
Okay.
go back to tell you how I did this. I extracted the muni code, downloaded the muni code, Appendix A, and then cross-referenced it against the ministerial document that you provided with the markups to see the changes
What's
across.
changed and what's different.
And so it was difficult when we were talking about moving chapter 56 to the new section, that some of those existing chapter 56 fees that I would expect to see there weren't there.
Yes, okay, so this all relates to a good bit of things within the property maintenance or code
Correct.
enforcement, which was recently brought before council. And so these items are ones that a lot of things were moving from chapter 26 dash, et cetera, et cetera. So we, in the updates that we had, if the fee was existing and it maybe existed in chapter 26 or somewhere else, we tried to, similar to what the new steps that were taken by code enforcement and the community service team, trying to put everything into chapter 56, we tried to move things from places to keep it all kind of streamlined.
Okay.
So that's what you may see in strikeouts that say, where it's striking out 26, section 26, and putting it in to section 56.
Okay. So anyway, at the end of this, I think we really need to look at the fee table again as it's presented.
I
in
would
the
love to visit with you.
in the muni code. I'd be
yeah.
happy to tell you how that worked out, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I would love to visit with you separately, just because there are some things that as we were working through the process of gathering, being the collector of all of the information among departments, I have some thoughts about ways to tweak that process.
Sure.
And I'd love to hear from you in
Sure.
terms of
And it needs
what
to be
it
as
looks like.
transparent. My goal hopefully is to be as transparent to our constituents as they can, so they can read it, understand what the fee structures are overall, not necessarily addressing the change. As I said already, I'm comfortable with the changes that have been proposed here. So, just wanted to bring that to the attention.
May I make a suggestion? So there were two items that you noted that are, that would be things that we can easily change or correct, those two branch connection references. So when we make the motion
Yeah.
on K1, if you or someone wants to make it with those suggested
Certainly.
modifications, we can get that put in when we submit
Great.
it.
Understood. Thank you. Mayor, just two other quick questions. Charles, on the interlocal agreement on item I-2, rereading that, it looks like Farmers Branch is the point city. Is that the point city for all four, including Dallas? Or is Dallas addressing, help me understand, we're phase 2, and we're being the point for the other,
They're the three.
okay, the other 3 suburban cities?
Correct. It's kind of similar, I know you weren't on the council at the time, but when we handled the radio system, we had, for Intech, we all had a kind of a joint we were upgrading the radio, and rather than, it's really cumbersome to have 4 cities contract with a radio vendor, and so the decision was made on that. Hey, we'll have an interlocal agreement, so we know how to split the cost between cities, but Farmers Branch would be the point agency for the billing. So we're extending that same philosophy to this, is that we all understand that we're each in it for $25,000 apiece for the interlocal agreement. However, we're the main contracting agency directly with Meadows.
Including the Dallas portions of 200,000, is that correct?
No.
Okay, Dallas is doing their.
Dallas, the way that contract will
That's
be.
what I was trying to
Yeah,
clarify.
the contract itself will be split up so that there'll be a contract directly with Dallas County and then one with the cities.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because I don't want to bill on behalf of, for many reasons, Dallas
Understood,
County.
and thank you for clarifying it, because I think it was important to understand the differentials of how we as a city are stepping up to address that. so.
Correct, and the other piece to that is there was some sense of, the cities were a little bit concerned that if one agency versus another, and the reason it was split in two, they could, depending on who was in charge of paying, there was a concern that there might be an obligation to, the report might be tilted towards one agency versus another, and so that was the decision to completely split the phase 1 and phase 2.
Understood. And the time frame, if I read correctly, is roughly 9 months for the delivery of the report? Okay, very good, thank you. In the item I3, Mayor, the landfill gas flare, in the contract, there's a additional recommendation for communication software. Is that something that we already have that we don't need to get? Because it was item number 1 of 3, and I saw that the other 2 looked like the costs were included in our $161,000.
It was included, if you want to go the route, we can. So as we work with our vendor who's actually installing, so they just close the day on the firm that's actually going to install it for us. We'll work with them to determine do we need that or not, but put the price in there to include it if we need it.
Okay.
If we don't, then we'll buy it. We're not obligated.
Is that, if I read it correctly, it said the price was to be determined. Am I reading it wrong, that it's the other, let me get on that page, sorry. I need to be better. I'm trying to be paperless, so guys, it's, bear with me. Not always easy. I could have asked you something fun, like it's gonna be 51 feet tall, is that correct?
Yes, it's,
Very good, so, thank you. It is on the payment. This would be page 9 of 22 for those following along. The recommended optional equipment pricing, number 1, standard communication, price available upon request.
yeah, we have, the current system has communication out there.
That's what I
So
thought.
when the flare shuts down, it auto dials someone to come out in the middle of the night to start the thing back up. So we have the current communication system that's existing at the flare. Should we need some additional bells and whistles, that would be this to be determined amount. Currently, the current system's working as it should.
And you've answered the question, and I assumed as much, that we already had a communication. This should tie right into that,
Yes, sir.
and we wouldn't necessarily. Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much, Shane, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Real quick, Councilmember Town had a question on
I have a
fees.
question for Cheryl, I'm so sorry. But it's a quick one, and it's really a point of clarification. Whenever we were looking at changes to the library, one of the things we talked about that a lot of folks were questioning was related to the fee schedule for room rentals. One of the things that happened in the past is that nonprofits were exempt from the payments. I just want to confirm, nonprofits are still exempt from paying for the room rentals, is that correct?
That was not a change to the fee schedule this year, so.
So it's still,
yeah,
okay.
that
I didn't see
was
anything
not
on
one.
library, and that's really
Right.
the only thing that we have from a revenue perspective.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was not a change that we made for
Yeah, if
this
I'm-
time. If it was in place, it's still in place. We
Got it.
didn't change it.
If I remember right, it's once a quarter, it's for free.
Once a quarter. Got it, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Driscoll.
44.
No, I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
You didn't keep people on their toes, Merritt.
I went to paper that time, that's why I got it quicker.
Next is A2, discuss the city manager's proposed fiscal year 2021-22 balanced budget and current year-end proposed amended budget.
I get the impression y'all are going to be seeing a lot from me today. I actually don't have a formal prepared presentation. We've been through a lot of steps and a lot of discussion about the budget. I'm just here to answer any questions. I know we have a lot of items, budget-related, on the agenda coming up at the 6 o'clock meeting. And so, and those items are things that need to be passed tonight in order for all these other pieces to fall into place. So if there are any kind of, big hairy questions that I can take some time during the break to, research or something, this will be a real good time to let me know, and I'd be happy to research anything that you might want to know at 6 o'clock. Other than that, this is a wonderful opportunity for any other questions, discussion, or what have you related to the current year budget or any of the proposed amendments to the 2020-2021 budget.
Councilmember Driscoll, do you have anything?
No, I don't think.
Councilmember Merritt?
No, thank you very much for all the work.
Councilmember Lynn?
Not at this time.
Councilmember Williams?
I'm good.
Councilmember Rotano?
I'm good as well.
Okay, I'm good also.
Oh,
you.
good.
All right, A3, discuss future agenda items. For me, I have one. I'd like to bring up the idea of road diet again, but this time in a much different capacity. I know we're looking at doing it in the station area already, but I would like to look at potentially going all the way down Valley View until we hit Alpha. I would also like to look at Webb Chapel in its entirety as well, and potentially Josie Lane. I wouldn't look at this as something to where we need to put in bike lanes, but can we bring more landscaping into those first two lanes that could ultimately hide power lines, provide for wider sidewalks, more connectivity, and something that feels a little bit safer. And with the right landscaping, does it add more of a park feel to the community? And when we look at it from a long-term impact, what are we doing by eliminating those road miles that we no longer have to take care of? Given that the population in the center of the city is probably not going to change very much into the future, I feel that 2 lanes each way on a lot of these roads are more than adequate for our residents. And so a diet, could be something that we could probably absorb. So just something I want to take a look at in the future. I just think it'll, kind of help with the overall aesthetic, but also help in some areas as well. So I'll take a look at that in the future. Councilmember Rotano.
Yes, I want to, and it may be something for future briefing, but just having a discussion, because I would love everybody's thoughts. There has been an increase that I've seen in our homeless neighbors around our borders. And I know, Councilmember Lynn, this is something that you've been very interested in. And I would love to get a group together of all of the stakeholders that have, that own some of the properties along our borders to really have a very strategic conversation on how we can either provide resources, really just try to figure out, why there's been an increase. I know we can make the assumptions, right? But getting TxDOT, someone from the city of Dallas, someone from PD, RPD, Dallas PD, just to have everybody in one room to talk about really what's going on and how it's how we can help mitigate the issues that we're having right now. So, and Mayor, I know you've done little task forces, or I don't know if that's the best avenue, but just having a conversation on how we can do that. And I will defer to you on the method that we think would be best.
Councilmember Williams.
I would second that. I would also like to see that. I know that Terry, that you've been involved with one of the TxDOT properties that's actually in my district. I know that with the mental health and wellness assessment that we're undergoing, that will help to bring that reporting to us. So that may be something that we want to look at once that project is done after that 9 months, because it looks like that they have a really robust background in kind of putting all those pieces together so that, we can maybe make some informed decisions on how to handle that. But I do think that having a conversation with those homeowners, I know we've seen an increase on Josie under the underpass. I know we've got the issue on that TxDOT property. If anything, if there's a way, and I mean, I'll be happy to do it just from my personal social media, But just to get them out, get the word out there that it's not something that we're ignoring, and that I like the messaging that we need to identify these people, the homeless issues that we're having, that those are neighbors. They may not be residents, but they are our neighbors, and so we need to treat that as such. And if we kind of help build that narrative that these are our neighbors and that they're under distress, and that we're addressing it, and we're coming up with some ideas on how to help everyone live safely and under the conditions that they want to live in, then I think that would be helpful with just getting that communication going. So I think a task force, I think that would be probably a great idea, because then at least we feel like we're being part of it. And so maybe we can be part of that assessment, those assessment conversations as well, because that assessment looks like it's pretty robust in what they're discussing. The other thing that I had to discuss, someone brought it to my attention, the library study rooms downstairs have a real noise issue. And so we've got a lot of our residents who are used to using those rooms downstairs as study areas are leaving the library. And I know that that's not what we want. We don't want to drive people away from the library. We want to continue to welcome them. And so I know that there's lots of different solutions that we can look at. So I'd like to hear some of those and maybe bring that to, I don't know if that's something the library board needs to look at or address, but that's something I'd like to see.
Councilmember
That's all
Lynn?
I have.
TxDOT property, that must be the hot item today. There's a homeless camp that's been growing for the past 3 weeks on that property. So we need to figure out how we can get some help now on that. I've been in touch with TxDOT, forward communication to Charles. We're not going to do their work for them, but that's something that we need to address, number one. The second thing that I have is I would like to have a presentation or conversation from the code enforcement manager regarding what qualifies as a vacant structure and how we address that in our code of ordinances. If he can at some point recap that. There are vacant residential structures. And so I'm specific to residential, so,
Is that all?
yes.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt?
Just more of a scheduling from a future perspective. I'm going to use my new guy card again. From a planning perspective, I know we have the strategic retreat in the January timeframe. Has that been calendared yet?
I think in October, you're planning to come.
Yeah, I could read it. I do have a draft of it.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
The first meeting in October? Yeah, we'll bring back a whole calendar for council to review.
Fair enough. Thank you so much. That's all I had at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Driscoll?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Okay. All right, I will go ahead and read in executive session B1. Council may convene into a closed executive session pursuant to section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code, deliberate regarding discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or sale of real property north of Valley View, south of Valwood, east of B Street, and west of Webb Chapel. We will recess for about 5 minutes. The time is 4:29. Thanks.